So here we are then in chapter 2 talking about lipids or fats. When we say the word fat, we typically think about something solid at room temperature, generally from animal sources like butter or bacon fat. And then when we say the word oils, we think of something liquid at room temperature from a plant source like olive oil, cottonseed oil, corn oil. We need fat in our diet. We also need fat on our bodies. Fat in our bodies provides energies, and you know that it provides more than 2 times the amount of calories than the other macronutrients, protein and carbohydrate. Fat provides 9 calories per gram, while protein and carbohydrate provides 4 calories per gram. We also need fat for insulation on our body in those cold Wisconsin winters. Some of us have a little more insulation than others. And we need fat to protect our vital organs. We need fat in our diet to help our body carry and absorb the fat-soluble vitamins, which are A, D, E, and K. And more in Chapter 5, we will talk about the relationship between dietary fat, cholesterol, and the relationship to heart disease. We'll talk a little bit about it today. Fat also provides essential fatty acids like linoleic and linoleic acid. Those terms may sound a little more familiar when I speak of them in their chemical chain names, which would be omega-3 and omega-6 fats. All right, let's get into a little bit of the chemistry with the fatty acids. And the reason why I cover this is because I think it helps you get a visual of what's actually happening with the structures and why they're solid or liquid at room temperature. So a saturated fat is typically a fat, typically from an animal source that's solid at room temperature. Butter, cream, whole milk, coconut oil, you'll see there. Also palm oil. So the butter, cream, whole milk, lard, bacon, the fat on meats, you'll recognize those as being from animal sources. Coconut oil and palm kernel oil, however, are from plant sources. So those are 2 plant-based sources that are solid at room temperature, and they are a saturated fat. Research shows that saturated fat and trans fat have much more of an impact on your blood cholesterol levels than the amount of dietary cholesterol you eat. So this is where that age-old question of, should I eat eggs? Are eggs healthy for me? Eggs are very healthy for us. They are high in cholesterol, but like we just said and you just read on the slide, the saturated fat and the trans fat that you consume have a greater impact of raising your blood cholesterol than consuming dietary cholesterol. Okay? Does that mean that you should eat a dozen eggs a day? No, but certainly moderate consumption of eggs is fine. Now, when we look at unsaturated fats, what that means is that the fatty acid chain is not saturated with hydrogen. So let me just pull up a picture of the fatty acid chains to help you with that visualizing. So you see on the top there, we have a saturated fat, okay? So we have a carbon chain here, the C's are the carbon, and then you have on every available spot a place for a hydrogen, okay? So it's saturated. I think of that saturated with hydrogen. That means it's solid at room temperature. It's very dense. It doesn't bend. So hard. Okay, so I think of that hardening of our arteries when I think of saturated fat. Contrast that with a monounsaturated fat or a polyunsaturated fat. You'll see that it doesn't hold all the hydrogens on the carbons that the saturated fat does because there's a presence of a double bond. Once there's a double bond in between 2 carbons, then that takes the place of a hydrogen. So it is now unsaturated. It's not as saturated with the hydrogens. If you have more than one double bond, you have a polyunsaturated fat. And we'll talk more about this in the next video.